Good evening, YouTube. Derek here, Hot Bar Crazy. Coming with a video tonight. Is the season. No, not turkey season, not Christmas season. It's the season Hall of Fame voting. So tonight I will give you my Hall of Fame votes for both if I had a vote, obviously, if for the Veterans Committee and for the traditional writers. So I'll start with chronological order and give you my Veterans Committee votes. I've picked 4 guys. I think that's the max you could pick. I'm not totally sure. And these, I think, are the best qualified, in my opinion, of the 4. I picked 4 guys who were top of the league for some time, or for the position, or overall, and overall had very, very, very good careers, and I think they should be in the Hall of Fame. First, I will start with the obvious one going from Michigan. Is Lou Whitaker. I'm not going to give you the main argument of because Trammell's in it, Whitaker isn't, but I think that's an easy argument. But Whitaker was a second baseman for the Tigers for so long. I think he was considered the best second baseman in the American League for a long time. There's others like Willie Randolph, and Frank White. But I think Whitaker was better for a longer period of time. He won multiple awards. He won Rookie of the Year, multiple Gold Gloves, multiple All-Stars, multiple Silver Sluggers, and World Series champion. In the World Series championship team, he batted leadoff. I think people always talk about middle order guys, how they should, they're part of the middle order, but leadoff man is a very important part in the lineup too, so I think he should get credit for doing that. And of course, in his career, there's always a comment about Roberto Alomar, but in his career, I think Alomar is a better second baseman. But in Whitaker's career, Alomar was the better second baseman. But overall, Whitaker was one of the top second basemen in baseball, and I think he was the top AL second baseman for a good part of a decade. And I think he should be in the Hall of Fame. Next up he was a former MVP, considered the top player in the league for several years. Combination of power and speed. I think some off-the-field things got him in trouble a little bit, but I love to see him in. He was a feared player. He had a combination of everything. Dave Parker, Cobra. I think his flamboyancy and his showmanship kind of irked a few baseball writers, and him getting caught in the cocaine trials in the mid-'80s kind of hurt his votes. But two-time World Series champion, you do all in the field, power, speed, throwing arm, hit it for average. Was one of the best players in baseball for a few years. Two-time World Series champion. He did it all. I'd like to see him get in before his Parkinson's gets any worse, because he's getting a little bit of a rough shape. I see him get in where he could give an eloquent speech. Next one I think is overlooked. He was one of the top players of the 70s and early 80s. Key cog in a perennial playoff team, Steve Garvey. I think he just gets hurt by, he doesn't have a great deal of home runs for first baseman, but he still had power. He was a 10-time All-Star, MVP. He hit in the playoffs. He pretty good fielder, consecutive games played. He did everything you asked him to do. He was a key man in the Dodgers lineup. He was probably the most feared guy in the Dodgers lineup through the whole decade of the 80s. I mean, he was more than Dusty Baker or Reggie Smith or Ron Cey. And after the Dodgers, he went to the Padres. They won a pennant in '84 with the Padres. So I think he's overlooked. I think he should be in. My last Veterans Committee guy was a 2-time MVP. I think he got hurt because he tailed off too quickly, but he was the top guy in the league in his position for close to a decade, I think. Dale Murphy. Also was, he's the should get bonus points as the epitome of good guy baseball players. Dale Murphy, I think his end of his career kind of tailed off a little bit. That's what's hurt him, but he was so good for so long, two-time MVP, and did everything they asked him to do. So that's my Veterans Committee votes. The other players, like Ted Simmons and Dwight Evans and Thurman Munson's and Tommy Johns and such, they're all good players, but I don't think they had the hardware, the championships, and the just a stellar overall play and the peaks of these four gentlemen here. I think these four gentlemen here are just plain overlooked. They should have been in the regulars committee, but I think these four should be the most honored of the four. So those are my four votes. Nothing against the other ones. I think these are just the best ones. As for the regular BBWAA votes, a Hall of Fame is going in early January. You can vote up to 10. I did not vote for 10. I voted for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'll go with the most obvious one, Derek Jeter. I don't think we need to explain any more beyond that. My next one is kind of the obvious. One of the shit most overlooked is Kurt Schilling. I think his resume just screams Hall of Fame. Did everything. He's the top pitchers of the era. He just doesn't have the hardware. Cy Young, because he's the same league Randy Johnson and the Braves pitching rotation, but he was just as good as any of them. I think he's one of two pitchers with more than 3,000 strikeouts and less than 1,000 walks. Plus, he's all about the Red Sox. I think, the main reason why the Red Sox broke the curse. So he's Red Sox championship, Diamondbacks World Series championship. Not to forget, he was the ace of the Phillies when they won the World Series in '93 and was NLCS MVP. So he won in multiple areas. Just a standout all-around great pitcher. But the only reason why he doesn't get voted in because nobody wants to hear Kurt Schilling talk on the podium. Everybody eyes on him for 10 minutes because we never know what the hell he's going to say. But heck, he should be in the Hall of Fame. His resume is just that good. Next up, I think Larry Walker should get in. His last year in voting. Unfortunately, he gets penalized for playing in Coors Field a lot of his career, but I think his playing days outside of Coors Field was enough to make up for or show that he was more than just a factor of Coors Field. Little mini rant here. How come we penalize Larry Walker's and Nolan Arenado's of the world for playing in Coors Field, very hitter friendly, but we never talk about pitchers who pitch in a very pitcher friendly things? Like, well, he's a great pitcher, but he pitches half his game in so and so. Like, for example, like Madison Bumgarner. He's a great pitcher, but he pitches half his game in San Francisco, where it's a very pitcher-friendly thing, or Felix Hernandez in Seattle. He could be a great Hall of Fame pitcher, but he pitches half his game in Seattle. We never hear about that. Even like a Kershaw or a Jacob deGrom, those guys, all of them have a ERA at least half a run better at home versus the road because of the home pitching park. We never hear of them complain about that, but I think it's a two-way street. Nothing against those pitchers, but let's, give Larry Walker his due. Rant over. Next up, I know this probably won't be a popular one, but this is what I believe in. I believe that Omar Vizquel should get in. Yeah, he wasn't the greatest of hitters. He's got, longevity, but you appreciate him if you see him pitch at field every day. Great defensive shortstops of all time. I think the difference between him and Ozzie Smith is Ozzie Smith hit that home run 85 World Series, and he was famous for his backflips and part of the Cardinals' media market. Vizquel was just as good as Ozzie Smith was defensively, pretty much equal to hitting wise. Vizquel had 2,800 and some odd hits. If he had work stoppage, like the big strike in '94 or so, how close would he get to 3,000 if he got, say, 50 more hits and get well over 2,900? People say, oh, he's a pretty much a 3,000 hit guy, we get in, and Ozzie Smith's in, and Bill Mazeroski in, and heck, they're just as he's just as good as the hitters and fielding of those two. I think he should get in. The argument, people don't want to watch a middle infield shortstop with a lot of power to come watch play. I totally disagree with that. I'd rather have him on my team than watch him than I'd rather watch an Albert Bell who comes up to bat 4 times a bat, but he's god awful rest of the field. Lisa Vizquel was amazing at shortstop, saves a lot of runs there, and he was adequate enough to actually help you in the ballpark hitting. Bell will just hopefully get a ball left field, hope he doesn't screw things up. That's my take on that. I think Vizquel should get in. I think he will eventually get in, probably a veterans committee where his peers will appreciate his skills more than the writers will. Because I think you watch him on a more of a daily basis, you appreciate how good Vizquel was, opposed to just seeing it on highlights or one game at a time type situation. The last two, if you ever noticed, I steer away from all the PED guys. I'm just not comfortable voting for those in quite yet, so they can just stay off of the ballot for now. I'm just going for the guys who I want to. Last two guys I'm kind of on the fence for, but I'm going to vote for the yes. Just so there's more pros than cons. First up is Jeff Kent, top hitting second baseman of this era, MVP. Not a good fielder whatsoever. That's what's kind of hindering me for going all in on Jeff Kent, but he was a good player for a very long time, considering the top of the leagues in his era. At least I'm not going to penalize him for at least playing the field, as opposed to being a DH and not playing the field at all. I give him credit for doing that, and so at worst, just gives a vote, keeps him on the ballot for another year. The last one is Andrew Jones. For the longest time, he had power and defense. All Gold Glove for the longest time. He was like one of the best Gold Glove center fielders ever. Had power for the longest time, but towards his career, post Braves, he kind of sucked terribly. So that's what kills his Hall of Fame chances. So, but I think he's got more pros than cons. So I think he's sort of people talk about standard bearer of defensive shortstops. Defensive center fielders, and Andrew Jones is one of the guys always brought up. So I think that counts for something. And he had a lot of power, had a good RBI guy, decent hitter in terms of batting average, but he sucked towards the end of his career. So that's what killing him. But I think overall, his big body of work, I think he should deserve. So that's my Hall of Fame votes. I think they're my thoughts on them. A couple of guys I omitted. I think PED guys I don't think deserve to get in quite yet. I'm just not ready to give him my votes. One other one is Billy Wagner. Did not vote for, and I'm sorry. I know I probably said it before. I do not like relief pitchers. Even though Billy Wagner is the best of his league, I view relief pitchers are part-timers. He only pitched 70, 80 innings a year, which is basically 5% of all the year the innings the team has. He's in there, so I don't see how relief pitchers are Hall of Famers. Mariano Rivera might be the only exception. Gossage, Suter, Hoffman, they don't belong in the Hall of Fame in my eyes. They're part-timers. Yes, they're excelling the role they're given, but at the same time, that's why they were given the role, because they're not as good as the pitchers of the starting pitching. Should we start Matt Stairs is the greatest maybe pinch hitting home run guy of all time? We should get him. That's the role he was given. He excelled at it very often. We give him the Hall of Fame vote. We got to draw a line at some point. And I'm not comfortable giving Hall of Fame votes to guys who pitched 70 to 80 innings a year, which is basically 5% of the innings a team has for the whole season. They're part-timers. They're in a bullpen for a reason. If they extend more than 2 to 3 innings, they get exposed for what they are. Just like middle infielders and backup guys who comes in for your starter who's lost for the 2 months of the year, that he gets put in as probably shortstop. He's good for like a week or so. They, oh, he's a good player. He should play more. All of a sudden, after a week or two, they say, oh, there's just holes in his game. Same reason why the relief pitchers are relief pitchers. They got major holes in their game. The reason why they're in there is because they have a great fastball, a decent secondary pitch, and have a no fear factor. That's what not make them Hall of Famers. My little rant on that. So that's why I do not vote for relief pitchers. That's why I do not vote for relief pitchers for Cy Young. That's why I do not collect relief pitchers. They're part-timers. Though that negativity and rant over with there. These are my Hall of Famers. I think this is an excellent class. So I hope you watched the video. I'm sure I probably kind of tick a few people off with my little rants and probably have disagreements with my thoughts, but that's how I feel. I'm a little old school on some of this stuff. And thank you for watching.